Hi, I'm Ben Pascoe for learningsurfphotography.com, and I'm going to be talking about the A6xxx Salted Line A6000 series waterproof housing. So you can use it with the A6000, that's the camera that I use for my surf photography, or the A6300 or the A6500. So it's I've been looking forward to seeing this one come out. It's the first Mekon, or I should explain, Mekon produced the housing and it's under the brand A6xxx. So it's the first A6xxx or Mekon housing which has a pistol grip and interchangeable ports and a viewfinder. There's been some combinations of that before, but this pistol grip is something brand new. You might be familiar with this one, which is the Mekon housing for the A6000. They also produce them for the 6300 and 6500. But this one, as you can see, it's got a fixed port. It's got no window for the viewfinder, and it hasn't got a pistol grip. Third-party pistol grips are available, or you make them yourself. I made one myself for this one, but they're not that great. They involve like a manual mechanical lever going at the top. So this is probably what you'd be looking at if you wanted a really budget-friendly option for your A6000 at the moment. It fits a few different lenses in it, short prime lenses, like this Sony 35mm f1.8, and the Sigma 19 and 30mm fit inside this port, as well as the 16 to 50mm kit lens. But what you haven't been able to do until now is shoot one-handed properly with a pistol grip, change the lens ports so you can use a much wider variety of lenses, and look through the viewfinder so you can actually see what's going on properly when it's normal daylight, which is most of the time when you're shooting surf. So that's why I'm excited for this one. It's pretty budget friendly. The housing without the pistol grip, just the housing and the port, is $297 US. The pistol grip is $99 as far as I know, or $100. And ports vary. They're about $99 for a flat port. It's a few different sizes I'll show you, or $185 for the dome port. So I'm going to run through really quickly what I think of it. I've used it once in the sea so far. First of all, I haven't done like a proper unboxing. You get lots of decent padding. You get a neoprene cover, for instance, for the dome port. You get kind of neoprene cover for the whole thing. So really well padded. It took me about 4 or 5 days to arrive from China to me in the UK. So I think that's going to be the same for the rest of Europe, for the US, Australia, the main places where you might want to take surf photography. South America might be a bit longer, but I guess it's going to be similar. So first things first, I've had a lot of questions about the pistol grip. It's plastic. It's held together with 6 screws or bolts in the back. It feels really sturdy. One thing I noticed straight away was the fact that the bolts that hold it onto the housing are much smaller and much closer together than any of the other surf style housings I've used. So let me show you an example. Here's my Liquid Eye C6000, quite a bit smaller as you can see straight away, but as you can see it's quite sturdy bolts and they're quite far apart. Likewise, Aquatech DSLR housing here, it's an old one, but these are the same distance apart as on the more recent pistol grips from Aquatech. So quite a lot more substantial in terms of the size of the base, the bit that connects the pistol grip and the housing, and the hardware that connects it as two. Saying that, I haven't felt any changes. Inside here there's a hole, a little O-ring, and in order to get it through there, because there is a connector obviously to connect it up to the A6000, which is like a micro USB style connector. So that's a bit too big to go through the little hole that they've made in the bottom of this housing. So what they've done is got a little 3.5mm kind of jack plug socket that clips in and out of each other. So that allows you to poke it through the little hole, thread it through, and get the signal coming from this button. This is a 2-stage trigger, so that means you hold it down kind of halfway and it'll focus, and you push it all the way, pull it all the way, and it'll take the photo. So much the same as the shutter button on your actual camera. When you half press, it focuses, full press takes the photo. That's the default setting anyway. You can tweak that in the settings if you want. I found it really, really good actually. I was quite surprised. I am able to put my head up to the viewfinder, hold it down and find that focus point without pressing the trigger. So I can do kind of controlled bursts as someone's riding a wave, for instance, or as the wave's pitching, burst of 2 or 3, keep the focus held down so it still tracks the subject or the wave or the surfer, and then burst again when they get to a certain point or when at the peak of the action. So that's really good. So pistol grip wise, I think they've done a really good job for a first attempt at a pistol grip. I don't know what I'd change about it, to be honest. It doesn't feel quite as sturdy as some of the other ones. It hasn't got as wide a base. But having said that, the only time I've used it so far was with the Sony 35mm. So it was with this port, which is the standard port you get with it, compatible with the 10 to 18mm and 16 to 50mm lenses from Sony. Incidentally, I've got lots of ports to try out. I'm going to put a big list on learningsurfphotography.com. There'll be a link underneath this video. That's going to show you exactly which lenses and ports, or which lenses you can use with which ports on this housing system. So I guess that moves me on nicely. Pistol grip works great, no problems with it at all. But that moves me on nicely to the ports themselves. So it uses, rather than a screw fitting like Liquid Eye or Aquatech, for instance, you can see the kind of dive heritage of this housing shining through in the port system. I mean, it's very obviously a dive housing that's had a couple of bits added on, pistol grip for instance, to make it more suitable for work on the surface. So at the moment, the ports they've got, first of all, the connection system is very much like, more like a dive housing would be. I think this kind of bayonet system, they call it, which is a bit like when you put your lens on your camera, that's called a bayonet system. It's got 3 kind of flanges, I guess, which slot in and then you twist and that locks it in place. So on this built-in port, you can see there's a white mark that shows you when you get to it. So I'm going to unscrew it. I've already removed a little screw-on, it's like a little tab that bolts in place and keeps this secured in one place. So that's that. You can't put them in the wrong way because these 3 tabs are different lengths, so it only fits in one way, which is useful. And if you line up the dots, then it's even simpler to do. So I have tested it, in fact, without that little locking latch in there. It works fine. So there you go, that's it. So you check the O-rings and everything as per the instructions, but that's it, locked in place, rather than quite a lengthy screwing process with the other surf brands that I've used, Aquatech, Liquid Eye, Salty surf housings, for instance. So time will tell if that's causes any issues. I don't expect it to, because this is kind of tried and tested with a lot of dive manufacturers. I think A6xxx water housings might have used a kind of similar bayonet system as well. So I don't think there's going to be a problem there. This lens port is suitable for a whole range of small prime lenses, but they do a slightly smaller one, a rather narrower one, like this, which has a threaded end piece. Let me show you really quickly. Threaded end piece, so you can put like a macro converter lens on it, like you can on their standard housing without the interchangeable ports. Don't know if I'll use that for surf photography, to be honest, but it gives me a bit of a lower profile, a bit of a lighter weight setup if I use that port for my primes, like my Sigma 60mm, for instance. So dome port, let's move on to that one. It's massive, basically. So it's clearly a dive style port. It's got these big like lens hood on the outside. It's kind of, I guess, to protect it from knocking on the reef or whatever you're focusing on. Haven't used it yet, so I'm leaving this protective layer on, but obviously that just peels straight off. So here's an Aquatech 6-inch port with a little extender. So as you can see, very similar in terms of the actual optical dome is very similar in size, but this one doesn't have that big lens hood. Here's a Liquid Eye dome, as you can see, radically different. This one's for the C6000 and it works with the Samyang V1 and my Maker 6.5mm fisheye, circular one, and the 7 Artisans 7.5mm fisheye, which is a diagonal fisheye. So that tiny port works with those, no problem. At the moment, I haven't got a fisheye that works with this port because it's so long here. My fisheyes are all small and they don't get anywhere near the dome part, I need the element of the lens to be up here somewhere, so that it will get a clear view without seeing the side of the tube of the port. So I've ordered a Samyang 8mm f3.5 fisheye, which is a bit of a different design. It's a bit bulkier. I think it was designed originally for Canon APS-C sensors, like the 7D, 60D, 80D, all those. But what it essentially looks like is a kind of Samyang one with an adapter on it, kind of built in. And I've measured up, and I think that's going to be long enough to allow me to use this dome port, which I'm excited to do. I have contacted C-Frogs, and they've said they are going to be producing a smaller dome port. I'm hoping it's going to be something. This is an Ike-Light, another dive one. So dive companies do make these mini ports as well. This had a removable lens hood on it, which I took off obviously. So I'm just looking for something like this, which is as close to the body of the housing as possible, so that I can use my really small fisheyes, which I really love, and it's going to make it so much easier to travel with. That's as big as the box that this came in is about as big as the one for the housing. So I mean, that dome port is probably bigger in terms of storage space, things I've got to pad it out, than my whole liquid A6xxx with a couple of ports. So ideally I'd like to swap that one out for a mini dome port, but I'm going to try it with the longer Samyang fisheye and see what it does, just so I can report back for you. There's some longer ports as well. So this is for a 90mm Sony macro lens, which is a full frame lens. I don't use full frame lenses on my camera because I've got an A6000 and I want it to be as small as possible. So I use things like the Sigma 60mm f2.8, the Sony 35mm f1.8, and these small fisheyes. Although saying that, this long port does allow me to use slightly out of the ordinary lenses, like the 18-200, only within a certain range. I'll experiment and put that on the website as well, learningsurfphotography.com. And it allows me to use the 55-210. I think that goes from about 55 to 135 from memory. So not a huge range. That brings me on though to the controls on the housing, because what you're going to want to do with any sort of zoom lens, and this port is designed to accept the 16-50mm kit lens and the 10-18mm Sony lens. This zoom control on the side, combined with a gear, this is a soft rubber gear that goes around the lens on the inside of the housing, and that matches up with the cogs that turn when I turn this control, and that allows me to zoom when it's inside the housing. So I reckon the 10-18mm with the zoom control is going to be really, really great in this housing. I'm going to enjoy using that. It's going to be really good for underwater. It's going to be a lot easier to shoot underwater and overwater in the same session than it is at the moment with a fisheye, because all my fisheyes are manual focus fisheyes. So that's going to be really, really good. It's going to be an advantage of this one over some of my other setups. What else can I mention about this? So the way you open and close it, there's two latches, one on each side, and pops open pretty easily. And then the back comes off. So there's some little guide pins that allow you to line this up really easily. There's a nice clear white O-ring there, so it's really easy to see if there's anything on there that might cause an issue. Likewise, you can see really clearly on the back plate. Controls wise, inside you've got your standard stuff. Because I'm using the A6000, I've had to put on change a couple of controls from the kind of standard ones that come with it. I assume the standard controls inside work with the A6300 and 6500 because they're a little bit thicker. But with the A6000, you need those extra padding just to make sure that the controls align well. I've had no problems with the controls on using mine. Right, so let's move on. Next bit is the flash possibilities. So inside the housing, there's a little kind of foil 45-degree reflector, and that when the flash pops up, that kind of reflects it, bounces it up through the top, where these two clear ports are designed to take an optical cable, which is pretty standard for dive photography. And the other end of that optical cable goes onto like a slave flash, which is a bit like this Fuji Nano flash that I've got. So I've ordered a couple of parts which are going to allow me to attach this flash up on top of the camera. So once I've got that, once I've got my 10 to 18mm Sony lens, or my fisheye, my Samyang f3.5 fisheye, then I'll be able to test out the flash photography. So I should be able to do that hopefully later this week. And the flash is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that works, whether it's really simple or if it's a bit of a palaver to get it working. So what haven't I covered? I've got the prices. Okay, so why would you want to buy this housing? So let's just break it down. If you shoot dive photography, if you need the extra depth, any surf housing like an Aquatech or a Liquid Eye or Salty or anyone, they're not going to rate their housings to very deep because they don't expect you to go diving with them. They're just for surface work like surf photography. This one can go down to the housing, I think, is the body is rated to 60 meters, but some of the ports like this dome port is rated to 40 meters. So double, triple check everything before you take it down really deep. But basically, this is going to be useful to you if you do dive photography and you want to dabble in surface water sports. It's a no-brainer, grab this. If you have your number one priority is surf photography or surface sports, water sports photography, then I would definitely consider spending a little bit extra, because it will only amount to hopefully a few $100s extra to get something like the Liquid Eye C6000, because this is specifically designed for work on the surface. It's got a very well thought out pistol grip system. It's got all the controls you need, but none of the ones you don't. There's not really anything surplus on there. It's as minimal as it can be while still being fully functional. This one, and some people will think this is a huge advantage, it has all the buttons you can think of for 6,000, 6,300, 6,500 range. It has, I guess that's where it suffers. It's trying to be everything all in one go, and for a reasonable price you can get a housing that will do pretty much anything you want it to do. An A6000 is a pretty budget friendly camera these days, and there's not a great deal of shots you can't get with an A6000 that you can get with even really top end surf photography gear. So an A6000, a handful of lenses, and this housing will give you so many possibilities in terms of underwater or surface water photography. But that's the kind of issue, I think. I think the main problem with it is because it needs to accommodate 3 different cameras, because it wants to be a dive housing and a surf housing and every other type of housing you can get. It's had to pack everything in. So it's bigger, it's heavier. It doesn't quite have the refined features like the mini domes yet. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they will bring something out which is going to really compete with the small minimal surf housings. But as yet, although there's a wide variety of ports, I've got 4 of them here, and they'll fit a wide variety of lenses, I can pretty much get all my surf photography done with 2 or 3 ports and the C6000. So by the time you've bought the setup with a C6000, for instance, or 6300 if you've got one, 500, etc., then you've got a very well designed, very well thought out surf specific housing setup. You probably paid a little bit more than you would for this, but that's the thing. You can compromise. If you're traveling a lot, that makes quite a big difference. Just being able to whack your whole kit, your surf camera, housing, lenses, all in your backpack, take it on as hand luggage, is a big bonus. Not saying it's not possible with this, but it's definitely kind of a step backwards in terms of my move from a DSLR down to a mirrorless camera. This and the small housing that goes with it, this is almost like a bit of a step backwards, because I'm bulking out my setup again. I'm going to need a couple of ports. One of them is this enormous dome. So there's a compromise. If you're willing to make that compromise, and I mean, especially if you only want to shoot, if you've got the Sony 10 to 18mm, the kit lens, maybe a 50mm, 35mm prime, you don't want to shoot fisheye is what I'm saying basically. Maybe you've got a GoPro that shoots fisheye, or you're happy with. This is going to be amazing. So that's where the value comes in, I think. If you can get away with this port, and I know that's kind of defeating the object of having interchangeable ports, but this is a pretty versatile port in itself. If you can get away with just this port, pistol grip, then that's a bargain. That's going to be under $400. I think that's right. $297 plus 100, $397 US for a setup which is going to get you lots of really, really good quality shots. At the same time, if you want to shoot fisheye, then at the moment I can't recommend this. It's coming soon. Bear with me. Maybe it'll be good. I'll be able to post more hopefully next week. So yeah, on that subject, I probably rambled on and on and on for long enough. First impressions are really, really positive. It floats, by the way. Talking of positive buoyancy, it does float. I think it's got everything you could possibly need for surf photography, but it's also got some stuff that's you're not going to need. So dive photography stuff, which is adding to the bulk and perhaps adding to the complications that you might not want to bother with if you can avoid it. So anyway, overall, really, really positive. Looking forward to testing out the dome port and the flash setup and really getting into it. I'll bring a bit more of a varied review after I've used it more than once in the future, but I wanted to get this one out really quick because I know there's a lot of people out there who just want to know general information about this, and if you can't hold it yourself and try things out, then hopefully this is the next best thing. Any questions? If you want to ask me anything about this, then email me, ben@learningsurfphotography.com, or comment below this video, or go to learningsurfphotography.com and comment on there. I'll get back to you and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. Yeah, really, really excited to try out the other features. So hopefully there'll be a few styles of photo I can do with this that I can't do with any of my other setups. For now though, I would, if you're a diver who wants to shoot surf, grab one straight away, no brainer. If you really need to shoot fisheye, maybe give it a little while for another port to come out, or until I've tested my f3.5 fisheye, and if that works, great, then you're laughing. So more to come on the Seafrog's Salted Line A6xxx series housing. Any questions, let me know. Thanks very much.